Dr. Robert Boggs, professor here at the NISA Center for Strategic Studies. Thank you for receiving us. We would like to ask you a question on U.S.-Pakistan relations. First of all, can you give us an overview, a brief overview of the last 10 years of relationship between the two countries, more or less ever since the beginning of the hostilities in Afghanistan following 9/11 and the intervention of NATO there?
Thanks, Philippe. A complicated question, but a really important one. Permit me just to start out by just mentioning that the relationship between the United States and Pakistan has been a really tendentious one or contentious one over the years. It can be emotive at times, and frankly, there's not a lot of agreement about what the underlying problems are and what to do about them, either in the United States and certainly not between the United States and Pakistan. So I'm sure that some of the things that I have to say, based on my own personal experience, probably will have objections among our viewers, and particularly maybe in Pakistan. I think we have to realize that the problems that we've encountered over the last decade, unfortunately, or maybe ironically, arose from a period of partnership, strategic partnership between the United States and Pakistan during the time of the Soviet occupation of Afghanistan. There were mistakes made, to be sure, but that partnership in which Pakistan, the United States, and the Saudi government collaborated to empower the liberation fighters of Afghanistan, the Mujahideen. We empowered them, and they basically made the Soviet intervention in Afghanistan untenable. A success that nobody, certainly no one in Washington, could ever have predicted at the beginning. So it was a great example of what the U.S. and Pakistan can do. Unfortunately, as a result of that, the Americans, I think, short-sightedly just pulled out, thinking that they had succeeded, so why hang around? Big mistake. There were elements, however, within the Pakistani government who took a very different set of lessons from that. There were elements who felt that Pakistan's continued collaboration with radical groups, both Afghan and Pakistani, was a way for Pakistan to project influence, force, and in some cases even violence into its neighboring countries. The problem is that by providing sanctuary for jihadi groups and providing them with some other support, that the ideology that motivated those groups bled over into Pakistani society and created a situation where parts of the country simply moved beyond the control of Islamabad. They've been explained to be or described to me by Pakistani generals as no-go zones, places that Pakistani forces could not even go into without doing so with considerable force. And the institutions, particularly madrasas, that were generating the ideological motive power of the jihad began to spread into Pakistani groups, and particularly after President Musharraf authorized the takeover, the take-back, if you will, of the Red Mosque in Islamabad in 2007, the Pakistani jihadists organized themselves into the TTP and literally declared war against the Pakistani state. One of the problems with that, and of course that really worried the Americans because we consider Pakistan a strategically important country. And so this rising tide of violence worried us. We really aggravated the Pakistanis by pressing the government to quote, do more. Use your military force to go into the areas where the radical groups are headquartered and basically subdue them. That really irritated the Pakistani military, who said, look, we're stretched thin already, you're asking too much, and after all, it's really your fault. That the war against extremism, particularly in Afghanistan, is an American war, not a Pakistani war. And the very fact that the Pakistan government joined the United States in that is the reason we're having all this problem. And once you Americans get out of Afghanistan, things will get better. Well, that's questionable. And there have been a number of irritants along the road, completely unnecessary irritants. The infamous Raymond Davis case, the killing along the border at Salalah, and so forth. So it's been very difficult, and I think that in many ways the relationship in the last couple of years has reached one of the historic low points. But that, I'm happy to say, has turned around more recently.
So it takes us to basically today.
Yes.
The last two or 3 years of Obama administration. What is the current status now of Pakistan-U.S. relations?
I'm happy to say that democratic forces in the region, both in Pakistan and Afghanistan, have changed the environment at least. Not necessarily the security situation, but certainly the political environment. The election of Nawaz Sharif in this past May brought in a new government, a new army chief. Nawaz Sharif clearly is much more dedicated than his predecessor to improving relations with both India and Afghanistan, and I think he's been perhaps more open to working strategically with the United States. The U.S., appreciating that there was that historic transition of power in Pakistan, has cut back on its infamous drone campaign, I think, which has lowered the temperature somewhat in Pakistan. And now, in addition to that, of course, we are facing next week elections in Afghanistan, which will clearly bring a new president, a new government, and I hope will turn the page on a chapter in Afghan-Pakistan relations that has been very, very fraught with recriminations on both sides. So I think the atmosphere, both in Islamabad and in Kabul, is going to be more conducive to more cooperation. And if I may, Philly, move on to sort of where we're going from here.
Absolutely.
I think that with ISAF forces pulling out, largely pulling out of Afghanistan, there'll be token forces left, of course. I think that the relationship between, a lot of the pressure on the relationship between the U.S. and Pakistan will be alleviated. The United States will be much, much less dependent on the landlines of communication through Pakistani territory to support major forces in Afghanistan. I think that will clarify the relationship to us and to the Pakistanis as well. I think both Pakistan and the United States still need each other to help to stabilize the area. I think post-change of government in Afghanistan, there will be also an opportunity for the Nawaz Sharif government to demonstrate its sincerity about working constructively to help work out both negotiated settlement with Pakistani militants and help the Afghan government with its own. I think that will be really clear, really benefit to our relationship. And finally, and this is kind of a plea, I guess, I would hope that the Nawaz Sharif government, working with the Afghans, will make it clear to both their populations that the United States can be a sincere and constructive partner, and that the three of us working together can help to stabilize the border areas between the two of them, and that the three of us working together can again achieve the kind of strategic success that we did back in the 80s.
Dr. Robert Boggs, thank you very much.
And thank you, sir.